Greetings, students, knights, and staff of the Jedi Praxeum. This talk's going to be a little different. I didn't get to make it last night because life got in the way, so I'm making it now as soon as I get home from work today. Still Wednesday, but the fact that I was just ridiculously busy until way too late to worry about this last night brought about today's discussion. All of us walk the path of the Jedi for different reasons. We all come from a different origin point, and we all have a different goal in mind. I want you to think about what it is that you're going to do in your life to be Jedi. It's not a passive role. Knighthood is a call to action. It is a duty. The path is one that it's internal and it's contemplative and it's external and it's active. And it exists in between the two and as a mixture of the two. So there's a lot of ways that you can fulfill your duties and roles as a knight, as a Jedi, in your daily life. That none of them require, robes and lightsabers and all that other fun stuff that we don't need to do. One of my students, his name's Andre, he was a park ranger when we first met. And that was very large in his path, in his early startings, because he was always about making sure that people were safe and making sure the animals were good. Like, we had bison at this particular park, and part of his job was to care for the bison. But we also had trails that stretched halfway across the city that went through this park, and his job there was also to be the police department liaison for anything that went bad there, anybody that got lost or anybody that got injured. He was the one that rode up and down these trails in on a quad or a Raptor or sometimes a golf cart on the paved ones, and looked out for people. He stopped a couple of suicides, actually. He helped a lot of people doing this. That's not what he's doing now, but he's still helping just as many people. His path is reflected in his day. When I first started the path, I did security work. Well, started the path in earnest. I mean, I started when I was in school, but to start applying the path to the world around me, I was doing security work, and I helped people physically, medically sometimes. I protected people and property, but it was still the act of protection. It was still the act of guarding. It was directed of information, training. I trained most of our department in empty hand defensive techniques that, we didn't need them very often, but the rough part of town wasn't but around the corner, which is why we needed a security worker, a security force there, 24/7. And it was something we needed every once in a while, and I was unofficially in charge of that. Did it for employees too, not just the security department, but pretty much anybody that was leaving late, like the late night servers, the late night bartenders, anybody that might have a problem, either on site or once they left, if they had to stop at the gas station on the way home or whatever, And I still do that to some extent. I teach karate at a park during favorable months. So 3 months out of the year I don't, because it's raining and freezing and snowing and nobody wants to play out in the snow in some archaic pajamas. So I get it. But 9 months out of the year I teach karate free to anybody that's willing to learn. And that is part of my path. part of my path is to make sure that as a knight that cannot be everywhere at once, because no one can, to make the impact to aid as many people in as many places as possible. So this weekend's course is going to be a study hall. It's called the Force Work Study Hall, and it's going to go into, we're going to touch on dissecting and creating force work skills, techniques, and we're going to review any part of the course up to this point that's been giving anybody any trouble. But I do want to discuss this with everybody that's in the course first. I want to know what it is that you plan to do as a Jedi. How is it going to affect your day? How does it affect your life? As your training progresses, how is that going to change the way it affects your day? Are you directing your training to further along the path that you're on in how you relate your day to the Jedi? Or is your training to strengthen in areas that you don't get to practice much because of the specifics of your day-to-day life? I'm a mechanic by trade, so there's a lot of interpersonal things that I don't get. I work in a shop where everybody's got headphones in because it's always loud. We don't talk to each other much, and we don't deal with customers. We don't deal with the general public all that often. We work on things. We stay focused, and we make these machines work, which is a fantastically important skill in a lot of ways, in a lot of places. But because of that, I don't get a lot of interpersonal connection. So my training is in social dynamics, NLP, just to see how people's brains react to certain words. Not that I'm attempting to, brainwash anybody, but knowing how the mind works is very effective when you have to deal with people. I also study the way we interact with each other energetically and subconsciously. Like previous course when we were talking about the control dramas. And our path leads us to where it is we're supposed to be, but where it is we're supposed to go. The Force will take you where it needs you to be, even if it's not somewhere you expect to be needed. Like when I started that security job, I'd have laughed at you if you told me I was going to be a mechanic. I didn't like getting dirty. Now I'm stained and this stuff just doesn't really come off. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine. I'm stunned when my hands are actually clean and not all cut up. But it's just where we are. It's where I am, and you are where you are. The Force puts you there. The Force gave you the option to be there, even if you made the decision that you were going to be there or somewhere else. The Force gave you that option. It made that option possible. We all have the things that we latch onto, and we all have the things we sacrifice in order to latch onto those other things. And that is the actual point. This path, it doesn't just make warrior monks. If that was the case, then technology wouldn't be that much of a thing. We wouldn't be having these discussions. We'd have a temple in the woods somewhere, and you either showed up or you didn't. But we don't, that's not what we are. Some of us would like that to be a potential eventual problem. I am one of them. But as an option, not as an absolute. I'd love to be able to take a month off and go hang out at the temple, But, maybe one day. It's not today. But this path, it affects everyone. It doesn't always affect in the same way, but everyone that steps on this path in earnest is changed by it forever. I used to tell people that when they'd start, and I'd be like, don't start this if you're only half in it, because it's going to change you, and there's nothing you can do about those changes. Those changes are permanent. They're forever, and if you decide that this is no longer for you, you are already changed by it. And you can leave the path at any point, but don't think for a second that you're going to leave the changes behind, because you won't. You can't. And that's okay. We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to evolve. So think about where you are. Think about what you do for the day to day. Think about, does it fit with the path? Does it fit with your path? Because everything fits with the path as long as you are not actively creating disharmony. Big disharmony. Big bowgun disharmony. As long as you are not actively projecting imbalance into the world, then pretty much every path works within the Jedi. We're generalists, as it has been said. We all learn a general set of understandings and skills, and then we learn how to use those to specialize in a myriad of things. But we are generalists by design, so that we can be of the most benefit to the most people in the most time. The Jedi, as we exist, we are very scattered. Geographically, ideologically even. We're very scattered. And that scattering, while it creates strife at times, and it creates distance between people and different distance between groups, that variety of development, it's needed. If we were to become far too focused in one particular angle of it, we would lose other parts. The mythos never shows that they exist solely as monks. They all have other skills. They have all learned to do other things. Especially in the New Jedi Order, they all had jobs at some point. Corran was a cop, then he was a pilot, then he was a Jedi. Luke was a soldier, then he was a pilot, then he was a Jedi. There were mechanics, like Jaina Solo. She was exceptionally mechanically skilled. So was Anakin Solo. Jason Solo was very, very much an herbalist. He was very connected to nature. He was almost the shaman. In his later years, before they decided to turn him into a bad guy, he was a shaman. He had learned from multiple different sects of Force users that were not strictly Jedi. Like the Beaumont monks and the Falanasi and the Angti. He learned a bunch of different skills from a bunch of different places because his entire existence was dedicated to fully understanding the Force. So he went and learned. He specialized in the Force. But he still had other skills. He was still a pretty good pilot. And, you know, pilots, they're the same as driving here. I mean, we all drive for the most part. And that's how they got around, was in flying things or hovering things. Either way, it was same skill, different vehicle. But the point is that they were Jedi. They knew how to do stuff that wasn't specifically Jedi. But the things that they did that were not specifically Jedi never compromised them as Jedi. They always found a way to make their path fit their profession. And make their profession fit within their path. Never saw one dealing spice, you know? Never really did see that. You never saw any of them actively acting against the path while being on the path. That just didn't happen. And that's the way we need to be here. while this course thus far has been aimed at taking folks into a much deeper understanding of the Force, a much more holistic approach to it, at no time have I ever expected anyone to just stop being a person, stop being human, stop existing as a being in a socially geared world. I wouldn't expect that of anyone. I don't expect it of myself. But up to this point, I haven't really spoken on it a lot, and thus I am correcting that currently. So everyone, take the time for the next few days. Look at the path as you have experienced it your entire time here, not just in the Praxeum. If you have any previous exposure, any previous training, pretty much everybody has some previous exposure. And most of the people in the course right now already have previous training. So relate it to the entire time that you've been on this path, or some path adjacent. It can be an occult path, a pagan path, as long as it's not actively sowing imbalance. That's the only real thing that keeps it not aligned with the Jedi path, is actively being destructive, just for the sake of being destructive. Not like breaking eggs to make omelet destructive, like blow stuff up because it's pretty to blow it up destructive. That's bad. So anytime you spent on a path like that, path like this, any religio-spiritual path, especially one that's got any kind of metaphysical undercurrent to it, think back. See how it's changed you. See how it's informed everything you've done. And then tell me. You can tell me in a post, or we can just discuss it Sunday. It's fine. Tell me, does your path fit where you are? If the answer is yes, that's fantastic. Was it on purpose? Or did you make your path fit where you are? Which is fine. As long as you are still of the path, it doesn't matter. And if not, if the path does not fit where you are, which mine doesn't perfectly fit where I am, and I'm looking to rectify that problem. But that's the next step. If it doesn't fit where you are, tell me what you're doing about that. Like my daily money-making job doesn't really fit with that very well, which is why I teach. And I don't just teach the kick and kill part. It's the Jedi path under a slightly less specific label. It's called Zenryokukai. It means the organization of complete energy. That's actually what that hand over here is about. That one right there. The Roninkan, that's the name of the dojo, but the kanji underneath it says Roninkan Zenryokukai Karate Do. And it means full energy organization. So that's what I do to rectify the way that my day job does not really fit my path. But I'm even still trying to fix that, because that dichotomy of it fits and it doesn't fit, it gets to be kind of stressing. It's another thing to think about. If you're on a part of your daily grind that doesn't fit with the path, eventually it's going to buck against it. It's going to become a stress point. So I'm going to stop rambling now. I don't know if anybody's really getting a lot out of these. I get a lot out of them because it lets me vocalize what's going on in my head. And a couple of people that actually answer these gives me some insight. These aren't like absolutely required, but none of it really is. Nobody's gonna make you homeless if you don't complete this course. It's all volunteer stuff. So if you don't want to do it, don't. I'd like to see you do it, but that's just because I'd like to see where everybody else is. Anyway, Force guide and protect you all.